Good evening, everyone. So glad that it's not even 8:05 yet, and we have over 560 folks on board on tonight's training. I'm Caden Wime. I'm an organizer with Public Citizen, and so great to have you on tonight's Rise for Freedom training call. Tonight, we'll be talking about how to talk across differences and speak with people you might disagree with. So, if next slide, we can go over there. We will get started with our icebreaker tonight. It's really on theme. So we're going to take this opportunity for those of you who haven't been to the past couple trainings where we have used Mentimeter. Mentimeter is our engagement tool that helps us see folks' responses live and in real time. And so we're going to take this quick opportunity to get acquainted with Mentimeter. So this very timely icebreaker tonight is on thinking about somebody you might disagree with on some deep level issues, but that you deeply care about. What's something you can get alignment on? So if you're with other people, either in person, on Google Meet, or on FaceTime, take a sec to exit the audio after I give the instructions and after we launch the icebreaker. And I'll show you how to exit your audio in just a sec, and do the icebreaker with the people in your room. For those of you, if we could go back to the previous slide real quick. If for those of you who are with a big group, do the introductions in groups of 2 or 3, and then turn your sound back on and come back to the group. So showing you how to exit your Zoom audio real quick. If you'll notice, on the bottom bar of your Zoom, there is the little microphone icon. And when you join the meeting, you might have clicked the headphone with the green up arrow icon that says join audio. So once you've joined audio, it's going to switch to that microphone. And what you'll want to do is click on the little caret, that little up arrow right next to it, and click leave computer audio. And that'll exit you from the audio. In order to rejoin the audio when the icebreaker is over, you'll need to click that headphone with the green up arrow icon again. So just make sure to do that when the audio is over, but this is so you don't have to hear all the commentary that we'll be saying during the icebreaker. So without further ado, let's get into that icebreaker. We'll go to the next slide. Awesome. So today's icebreaker is going to be on Mentimeter. And so again, if you haven't used Mentimeter before, it's really simple. All you have to do is either go to menti.com and enter in code 66210417. Again, that's 66210417. We'll have folks post that in the chat for you. Or you could take out your phone and scan the QR code on the screen. And that'll take you to today's icebreaker, which is think of someone you care about who strongly disagrees with you about something important. I know everyone's got one of those people in their lives, but what's something you can both agree on? So we're going to give everyone a few seconds to scan the QR code or enter the code, and then we'll hop over to the Mentimeter. And the QR code is still going to be on the screen if you're still looking for it. So answer away. And for those in groups, feel free to exit your audio for a couple minutes, and we'll jump back in as soon as the icebreaker's over. Take a sec to answer the icebreaker. Education, family. I'm sensing everyone's got a relative that they might disagree heavily on something with. Civility, that's good. Reproductive rights, honestly, that's a really good agreement to have, especially with so much disagreement about other things. Justice, love, education. For folks who did type education, feel free to expand on what you mean in the chat about that. We'd love to hear more. Respect, mutual respect, right? That's the thing about democracy. That's what we're trying to defend. Is it's about it's about having that civility and having respect for each other across disagreements and divides, and that we can. I think Akina mentioned this in the very first training, that we can have disagreements, but what we can unite on is that we want to be in a democracy to have those disagreements. We can effectively have disagreements if we're in an authoritarian or autocratic regime. Only through democracy are we able to communicate across those divides and come to compromises and create a future that's better for our children and the next generation. Voting rights, human rights, seeing that in the chat, but seeing civility, love. I'll speak to a personal anecdote. I have a relative who I disagree with on some things like vaccines and even whether the 2020 election was stolen. Obviously, I don't think it was, but my relative does think. But what we can agree on and align on is that corporations maybe have too much power in the political system, or that this administration is concentrating a lot of power really quickly, and that overall autocracy is bad and a big threat to democracy. So there's some really fundamental things we can still agree on, and that we can always draw ourselves back to in our conversation, back to even across some fundamental disagreements. And that seems to be what a lot of people are experiencing in saying family, right? Family and love for each other. It's because we love each other that we try to find those common denominators. So we'll give everyone maybe 30 more seconds. I'm already seeing about almost 500 responses, and we have about 600 people. So giving a few more seconds for those who haven't had the chance to answer. Friendship, not wanting to sacrifice friendships for disagreements. Dogs. You know what? Yes, we need pets to bring us together. Uh, dogs, cats, fish. If you're a fish person, yes. Shout out to all the cat people out there. I'm a cat person, but um, let's see. Awesome. Let's see, veterans was mentioned. We'll give it maybe about 10 more seconds for everyone to respond to the icebreaker. If you haven't already, scan that QR code and enter in something real quick, or add to something that's already in there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Well, taking a look at this, we're seeing that people really value education, and that's something that a lot of us can agree on. But most importantly, it's like family, respect, love, friendship. That's what brings us together, and that's what we can both agree on, is that those things are super, super important. And even that we might have fundamental divides, disagreements, policy differences, that ultimately what grounds us is our family and our love for each other and respect. And honestly, if maybe those in power just had a little bit more of what everyone here on this call has, which is respect across family and respect as for each other as human beings, as people, then we'd be in a lot better of a place right now. So anyway, let's hop over back to the slides. Thank you all so much for engaging on this icebreaker with me today. Perfect. So just a shout out to our partners. We have a good amount of partners on the Rise for Freedom training series, but wanted to shout out Public Citizen, Women's March, the League of Women Voters, the Declaration for American Democracy Coalition, and also want to shout out the League of Conservation Voters and the Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice, UUSJ, for bringing so many people to these trainings. Thank you so much. And just shout out to all of our partners for coming together and bringing your folks here. So we'll go to the next slide. So on tonight's agenda, real quick, for captioning is available on tonight's Zoom call. If you go to the bottom bar, you can go to live transcriptions. You can click more or CC and then captions and click show captions. But on tonight's agenda, we have our welcome and overview, which we're kind of doing right now. We have our action asks, in which we'll hear about the May Day national mobilization. We'll also hear from Justin from the League of Conservation Voters about the SAVE Act update. And then we'll go into our outreach tip. And then also then our deep dive for tonight's major training, which is how to talk with people we might disagree with. So next slide, please. Thank you so much. So quick recap of the timeline. Obviously, April 3rd, April 10th, we had our first couple trainings. Today, we're on tonight's training of talking across differences. Next week, April 24th, we have harnessing our power to end political violence and repression. May 1st, which is getting shifted back a week to accommodate for the May Day National Mobilization. We're having our mutual aid and structures for local organizing training, and then we'll go into de-escalation and advanced strategic organizing skills, and then advanced strategic organizing skills and vote on possible topics for May 15th. So let's head over to the next slide, please. Thank you. Recap of our ethos. So if you weren't here for previous trainings to hear about our ethos, what we're trying to cultivate with this training series, you can always go back to the first recording to see the full description of the ethos. But a quick recap is that we're trying to be a big tent here. Progressives through conservatives are welcome as participants and presenters on these calls. And actually, we're going to have both, a liberal and a conservative on tonight's call doing the training. So we want to be united here in support of a democratic republic and stopping Trump's authoritarian power grab. We want to be welcoming here. We want to be love centered. We just had that icebreaker where we talked about how love brings us together. We want to be love centered. We want to be joy centered. We want to be connection focused in person and here on Zoom and training with each other as much as possible. So continuous outreach and recruitment is essential. We can't win without it. We've been doing outreach tips every single one of these trainings to help folks build capacity. We had a whole full training on outreach last week. Go back and see the recording in the follow-up emails if you haven't already been there or seen the recording. And then we'll have a deep training. What we're doing here is also deep trainings on how to organize and organize under autocracy and demand the democracy we deserve. And then lastly, we're calling in partners and hosts privately if they use othering or unwelcoming language. Again, we're trying to be as inclusive, as big tent, as respectful of an organizing space as possible, and calling folks in when they might use unwelcoming language or othering language helps to create that healthy space. So going to the next slide, please. Just a couple last reminders about the ethos. Nonviolence. We never support nonviolent tactics here at the Rise for Freedom training series. There is a universe of nonviolent direct action tactics which are part of the response to autocratic moves and democratic backsliding around the world. I could pull up so many examples from Chile, from Serbia, Bolivia, but these are part of the story of how different countries and people have been able to protect or move towards democracy. So again, nonviolence is part of the ethos of these calls. However, on these calls, we are not going to ask anyone to break the law, nor will we tell attendees how to use those nonviolent tactics, nonviolent action tactics. And then these trainings are also nonpartisan. So if you are maybe a local party group that try to partner on these, if you haven't received a response, it's because we are nonpartisan. We are entirely C3 on here, and so we don't have parties as partners, and we're just trying to be as uniting here as possible. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you so much. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Akine, who is going to facilitate these first couple polls for us. So off to you, Akine.
Hi, everybody. You should see on your screen, if you've been on our calls before, we want to know, are you going to host a Rise for Freedom training? You might be hosting one right now. Let us know that. There's a host form, Google form that'll be shared in the chat. If you would like to become a host, we'll follow up and support you. You might be still looking for a venue. We can call and help you brainstorm if you'd like on that. Maybe you want to host, maybe you don't. Let us know. And then some of you can't host, and that's okay too. You're doing what you can, or you're focused on planning for Saturday, April 19th actions or May 1st events that we're going to be hearing about shortly, and that is all fantastic. So this is a three-parter, so I'm just going to keep going. So our training schedule, as Kaden shared, is, next week we have a training. We're going to take a break for the May Day actions that we'll be hearing about, and then we'll be back on for mutual aid, de-escalation, advanced organizing skills. And we want to know, what do you want these last training or two to be about? Would you like a deeper dive on digital hygiene? We're actually not going to do a digital hygiene tip this week, but we usually do, to protect your data. Do you want to do a media training, how to become a more powerful storyteller in the media, with a focus likely on video, just because that's a dominant way for people to learn things these days. And if you want to do some other kind of deep dive training for our last training or two, put it in the chat and we will check that out. And if you have an idea that's already in the chat, put it in the chat again, just so we know how many people are interested. So that's our second question. Thanks everybody who's filling it out. Appreciate it. I see we only have about half, so please hop on to the poll on your screen if you haven't already. And then the last question is really just for people who are hosting tonight. If you're doing a gathering with people in your community, how many people are with you? And it's great. If you have one other person, that's fantastic. If you have 3, 4, and 5, 5 to 10. We're just trying to get a sense of what the 50 or so gatherings across the country with us live right now are like, so that we can better support you. So we'll give you, hoping to get to 500 out of 720 attendees voting. So please clock in your choices. And once you finish the poll, it will disappear once you submit your answers. So thank you all for participating. And if you can't see the poll for some reason, please use the chat and just let us know you would like, if you'd like deeper dive on digital hygiene, that's data security, privacy, media training, or something else. My name is Akane Freechild. I'm with Public Citizen. And we're excited to see everybody's choices here. All right, I'm going to end so we don't take too much time. But if you didn't get all your votes in, you can still use the chat and let us know what kind of deep training do you want next. 32 of you are hosting events right now. 80, just sort of 100 folks are wanting to host and aren't yet. It looks like we have a pretty even group of people who want to do digital hygiene and media. We'll see if we can do both for you. But if you want to weigh in, we'll look also and see what the suggestions were from the chat. So thank you all so much, and we'll get back to your program. Or actually, I'll introduce Justin Kwasa, who is the amazing, unstoppable democracy campaign director for the League of Conservation Voters, and also the co-chair of the Grassroots Working Group for the Declaration for American Democracy Coalition. Justin, tell us about SAVE.
Hey folks, Justin Kwasa. I really hate that picture. I'm sorry, guys. Justin Kwasa, he and pronouns, Democracy Program Director at League of Conservation Voters. Just want to give you all a quick update on where SAVE Act is. I hope most of you all heard the SAVE Act. For those that don't nor haven't heard, that is the bill that unnecessarily it will ask people to prove their citizenship, which is duplicative, but prove their citizenship in order to register to vote would cause numerous problems that would affect basically all communities, and make it harder for people to register to vote as well as have their voices heard at the polls. Unfortunately, last week, a week ago, it did pass the House. While that is unfortunate, it wasn't unexpected. But so while unfortunately that did happen, there were a lot of really great things that we got out of it. Number one, this was a bill that was voted on in 2024, right before the presidential election. There were less votes for the bill this time than there was last time. So all the amazing work that you've done, reaching out to your members of Congress, talking about this on social media, it really did work because you were able to sway votes. In addition, we know that this was a top priority of House Republican leadership, and this bill was delayed by almost 3 months because of people hearing back from their constituents that this was not a popular bill, and them trying to do damage control around it. So while this did pass the House, there was a lot of positive that came out of it because your voices were heard, and it did affect the process by which it was being passed. So now that it has passed the House, it is going to the Senate, where we do feel pretty confident that it can be blocked through filibuster. So the shift right now is for folks to, number one, thank the House members that did vote no on this bill. Really thank them for their courage in order to go against this, but then also telling your senators not to vote for this bill as well. So really making sure that we use the rules of the Senate in order to block this. In order to do a little bit deeper dive of kind of everything and all the strategies and messaging that's coming on with the SAVE Act now, I did want to invite folks to a movement call that we're having Tuesday at 7 o'clock next week. We'll provide the information for you kind of in the follow-ups to this, But do want to highlight that the speakers for that are two really important secretaries of state. Secretary Bellows from Maine, as well as Secretary Benson from Michigan, will be on this particular movement call. And it's really important that we have these state leaders on, because not only are we going to talk about what's happening on the federal side, both with the SAVE Act, with the Trump voting executive order that came out, but we also want to talk about these different states SAVE Acts that are popping up in over 20 states across the country, that are doing the exact same thing, really using immigration, using immigrants as a way for us to fear our democracy, to fear voting, and to use it as a way in order to disenfranchise voters across the country. So we really encourage you all to come to this discussion, to come to this movement briefing, figure out how you can plug into the fight moving forward, and also just have a little bit of a celebration for all the great work that we've done so far. So looking forward to seeing you all there, and looking forward to you all using the skills that you have in this in order to advocate for or against bills like the SAVE Act and for other anti-democracy measures. I really appreciate the time, and I'll pass it back to you, Akine.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Jose Arnulfo Cabrera with Chirla, to talk about May Day mobilizing.
Thank you. And I just also want to say, as an organization that's been working on a lot of the attacks at immigrant communities, and we have been fighting very hard against the SAVE Act because of how they continue to use scapegoat. It's very great to hear just that other organizations and other folks are fighting against this bill. It makes me personally feel like we're not the immigration movement is not fighting in silos. But my name is Jose Arnulfo Cabrera. I'm the Deputy Director of National Policies and Campaigns at Chirla. Me and a few of other organizations that are pushing, are defending immigrants across the country from the horrible attacks that the Trump administration and much of Congress is putting on our communities. We have been working on our May Day mobilization efforts that are happening on May 1st. A lot of our organizations have been organizing and doing May Day actions for decades now to uplift undocumented workers and just workers in general who have been under attack for many years. We have on an action or a website link that you guys can join on. We have about 23 different actions happening across the country in multiple different states that you all can look at which actions are happening near your community, the information on how you can go and participate and come out in these May Day actions. On top of that, on our website, you'll be able to find toolkits where you can use that in your communities to uplift the actions and uplift our messaging that we're uplifting, that workers are immigrants and immigrants are workers, and these horrible attacks that have happened. I also want to share we're also especially highlighting one of the scariest dangers that we're seeing in our immigrant community. Of all of the flights and target attacks that have been happening to Venezuelans and immigrants, in this idea of that we're deporting criminal immigrants to various different countries. One of the most recent ones that I know has been very covering the news a lot is Kilmar, who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador with the perceived notion that he was a gang member, but in reality, there's no indication that he was not a part of a gang member and has no criminal record whatsoever. Kilmar was one of the 238 migrants that were sent to El Salvador to the maximum prison there. As many of us and Kilmar's story has been uplifted, we just want to share that Kilmar is one of the many others who were wrongfully deported and are wrongfully being charged as criminals. For example, of those 238, 75% do not have any form of criminal record that can be found. 22 have are non-violent criminals of that group. And there have been many, many accounts of other immigrants who were deported and are being accused of gang members or are being put in this maximum prison in El Salvador that are wrongfully convicted and are wrongfully being said that they are criminals, while at the same time not getting any form of due process in this process. So we're uplifting those stories of Kilmar, especially if you are in the DC area, we'll be uplifting them because he's from the DMV area. So I just want to leave with that. And we'll also share that a little bit update on his case. We continuously, as of right now, Senator Van Hollen from Maryland is down in El Salvador along with Kilmar's lawyer. They actually tried today to go into the jail, but were detained while they were in jail. They were released a few hours after, but it continues to show how the misuse and horrible, inhumane treatments and lack of due process that folks are experiencing in this maximum prison in El Salvador. And so those are just a lot of things that we are continuing to uplift in our May Day action, along with all of the horrible attacks that immigrants have been feeling from this administration. And with that, I will pass it back.
Thank you so much for joining us and for your incredible work on May 1st. I hope folks check that out. We know there's the union organized events that day too. It should be an enormous day, and folks are in communication, and do what you can, what works best for you, but show up on May 1st if you can. We will not be having a training that week. So that everyone can show up and prioritize this. So there is a mobilization this Saturday, April 19th as well, and we 5051 and I believe the Women's March are throwing down for it. I'm going to put the organizer resources for this Saturday out. I think it's a really important time given the attacks on people's just basic right to freedom to be in this country and just live their lives with these abductions that are going on. We know it's been targeted to immigrants so far, but Trump administration has been floating doing that with US citizens as well. And this is clearly a test. We are all Kilmar. So thank you so much for coming. Check out the 5051. If we do have a speaker join, maybe we'll have them join at the break in the training, just so we can keep going with our program tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our main trainers. And speak, if we can pull up the slides really quick, connect today's training with the trainings we've had up till date. And if you've missed the trainings till date, if you are here, we will email you links to the previous trainings so you can get up to speed. Oops, I'm skipping Med entirely. I'm so sorry. I skipped our outreach tip. Apologies. Med Jayan is going to be doing some slides for us on outreach.
Hey y'all. So Medjine here. It's a bit hard to pronounce, honestly. It's spelled weird. French spelling. I'm the membership organizer with Corporate Accountability, and I'm so glad to be here with everybody here today. I just want to take a minute to ground us in last week's outreach tip, or outreach training rather, and ground us in why this work matters. We're not just inviting people to events when we're reaching out to them. We're inviting them into a movement rooted in people power, not corporate power. And people power starts with connections. So here are a few reminders as you continue to do your outreach, as you continue to invite people into the movement, and as you continue to build people power. So the first one is keep it joyful and keep it personal, even now. In the face of political coups powered by billionaires and corporate elites, our joy, our stories, and our connections are radical tools. Think about what moved you to show up in this moment and lead with that in your outreach. Humor, storytelling, and sincerity cut through fear and apathy, and they remind people that they are not alone and that their voices matter. Next tip, one-on-ones are powerful. When folks hesitate, don't take it personally. That's your moment to lean in, ask questions, listen deeply, and connect about why this moment calls for all of us. Go into each conversation with a plan. Know what you're going to talk about and what you want to ask them when you're getting ready to walk away. Take notes, especially on what they care about, what their availability is, and how they want to be involved. Your preparation is going to set the stage for what comes next, a clear, bold ask. So tip number 3, make the ask clear and bold. Don't leave it open-ended. Instead of want to come to this thing, try, we're building a people-powered response to corporate-backed authoritarianism. Can I count on you to come with me to this training? Be specific, whether it's, can you bring a friend to the next call? Or would you be up for sending a few outreach texts this week? Clarity builds confidence, and people are much more likely to act when they people are much more likely to act when they understand exactly what's being asked of them. These conversations aren't about perfection. We don't let perfection be the enemy of success. These are about planting seeds, building trust, building people power, and inviting folks into a purposeful movement into taking action. Finally, follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. Follow up and celebrate every effort and progress over perfection. One conversation is rarely enough. People are busy, distracted, unsure, they have their lives going on, and sometimes they just need a second ask. Or, as if you're a seasoned organizer, maybe it's a third or a fourth. But they need a reminder of the encouragement and that they matter, that their voice is valued and that they are important. So following up shows that. It shows commitment. It tells them that you want to hear from them and that you value their contribution. When corporate backed authoritarianism is tightening its grip, consistently following up is how we grow our numbers, deepen trust, and build a movement strong enough to fight back and to win. And don't forget, every conversation counts. Whether you reach out to one person or all 5, you took action, and that helps build momentum. So celebrate that effort, keep going, and know that this is how we win. It's been done before, and we'll do it again together. With that, we have a couple polls following up on last week's outreach training to see how y'all did in your outreach. I believe this should be coming up soon. We're gauging to see, there we go. How many of the 5 people you invited were you able to reach out to? For some folks, able to reach out to all 5. I think I actually have to participate in order to see the results.
Yeah, so you reached all 5. Did you reach 4, 3, 2, 1? And if you want to go for extra points, one of those people is at the training with you tonight, or maybe 2 or more of those people are at the training with you tonight. Let us know. How did it go? And if this is your first training with us, welcome. We're so glad you're here. It's okay that you don't do this one poll. Promise it'll be the only one you can't do. But think about who can you invite to the next one. I'll give it 10 more seconds. All right. So 55 of you, 30% of you reached at least 1. And 16% of you reached all 5, which is incredible. And there's over 30 people who are here tonight with us right now because of your outreach. Incredible. Amazing work. Thank you so much, Med. All right. So I think I am, in fact, going to introduce our main trainers now. So in the first 2 calls we learned that democracies are moving towards authoritarianism all over the world. This is a trend. We're not unique. We learned that quiet strategic organizing across major pillars of support for the regime. There's always pillars of support in every government, right? It can be economic, the business community, the bureaucratic, security forces, educational, cultural support, ethnic, religious support. This is true of all governments. But we learned that quiet outreach to those pillars of support is important when we have mass movements, peaceful, nonviolent mass movements for democracy. We need also to have quiet, powerful conversations that move people in the direction of supporting democracy. and opposing autocracy. So today we're talking about people we might disagree with because we need to talk to new people that we haven't talked to before. That's why we spent time on outreach last week. So next slide. We're trying to pull people away. We're not going to spend 5 minutes, but I just want to remind you of the exercise we did last week if you were here. We want to move people who are passively supporting the sliding towards autocracy that we're experiencing now to neutral, and the people who are neutral to passively opposing, or the passive folks move to active, where most of you are. We want you to move folks, and it is a victory to move someone from active support of democratic backsliding to passive. It is a victory to move from passive to neutral. So these conversations really matter. And that's why we have to have them. If not everybody might be cut out for it, but most of us can succeed in having them if we follow Beth and Doug's incredible advice. So we're going to move on to introducing our speakers from Braver Angels. Dr. Beth Mallow is a neurology physician and science communicator with experience in training people to communicate better across divides. She has moderated trainings for community groups on how to bridge differences, including with Common Ground Nashville and Braver Angels. And you can see more on her work in the chat. And that Dr. Doug Teschner is a former Republican state legislator from New Hampshire who served as Peace Corps country director in Ukraine and West Africa and volunteers as the regional director for Braver Angels, a nonprofit bipartisan national organization focused on reducing partisan polarization and bridging divides. So pleased and thrilled to introduce Dr. Mallow and Dr. Teschner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. And I think we need to have our bios and then the togethernow.substack.com in the chat would be great. Doug, do you want to present the slide?
Well, sure. We're happy to be here. First, I want to thank Olivia Zink from Open Democracy New Hampshire, who invited us tonight and connected us. And Beth and I have both been active with Braver Angels, which is a national citizens movement that helps brings Americans together to bridge the partisan divide, strengthen our democratic republic. And to take it one step further, Beth and I have been writing a book, which you can see the cover of there, Beyond the Politics of Contempt, Practical Steps to Build Positive Relationships in Divided Times. And we also have a free Substack, which is Together Across Differences, based on the book. And I would say the essential ideas in our book are, well, many fear for our nation's future. They're really practical steps we can each take to build hope for a better America. In this climate of widespread contempt and even hatred for people who disagree politically, we can each make important contributions to better our lives, our relationships, and our country. So the book really has 3 key ideas: skills for greater awareness of how your reactions to political events may impact your health and well-being, and how you can act in ways that can help you feel better and more in control. Secondly, is practical ways to mend relationships torn apart by politics, and to empower yourself and others when difficult conversations arise. And third, actions you can apply to help build a national culture of kindness, dignity, and respect, in the spirit that citizen-led solutions are antidotes to the nation's healthy division. Thank you, and back to you, Beth.
All right. And again, we can go to the next slide. I truly appreciate being here as well. And I loved everything that was said early on and throughout what we've been hearing tonight. I love the emphasis in the word cloud on, I saw respect, I saw civility, I saw kindness. I think that's fantastic. And that's really why we're here, to help train you or help you learn to get better at talking with people we might sometimes disagree with. We've all been there. I've been there. Doug's been there. And we just recognize how important it is for our democracy. So next slide. And I want to start out with a little bit of an exercise, which is, what can it look like to communicate with people we might disagree with? Pretend that you're online, you're on Facebook or Twitter or something else, Instagram, whatever your favorite platform is. And you see the statement from one of your friends, maybe: conservatives can't process how a young girl cares as much about the planet as they do about fully automatic machine guns and hating gay people. And you're like, oh, I'm riled up. And they want you to be riled up, right? Social media wants you to be riled up because that's how they get clicks, that's how they get money. But you're looking at this thing, and then you may be in a conversation and you hear, well, we just really need to educate them. They just keep voting against their own interests. Don't they realize what a mistake they made with the vote or whatever? Or you might be at a rally and you see a sign, you're so worried about our schools. I bet you can't even read this sign, right? So in other words, you can't even read and you're worried about the schools. So these are all examples where you're kind of like, you have these zingers and they feel good, but they don't always aren't the most effective thing. Let's go on to the next slide. And I want you to just take a few minutes and I'll explain the prompt in a minute, but if you're in a group, that's great. If you're not in a group, you can still do this. So if you're in a group, we want you to find one person in your group to chat with, or maybe you're only with 2 other people and that's fine. The 3 of you can chat. We're going to give you 3 minutes to look at these statements and just think about what it feels and what you notice when you read these kinds of statements that I went over. And there's 2 here to remind you. And then if you're on your own, that's okay too. Just do a self-reflection. When you see these statements, we just really need to educate, right? Or you're so worried about your schools, I bet you can't even read, right? How do you, like, what does it feel like to look at these statements? And what do you notice? And we're not asking you to agree or disagree, but just kind of notice how you feel. So let's go ahead and start the timer. And we can go back a slide because I want people to be able to still see the timer and the statements. And then when we're done with the countdown, we'll move on to the midter slide and have you, we'll create a word cloud. So be thinking a couple of words, right, for how it feels to look at these statements. You can just jot that down. You can put it in the chat, and then we'll have you put it in a word cloud in a bit. I'm seeing some great responses in the chat. Thank you. Awesome. Othering, disrespectful, condescending. Thank you. I think we can stop here. I mean, I think that people get the idea, and that way we'll save a little bit of time. So let's move on to the Mentimeter. And this time, just go ahead and, just like you did before, access the Mentimeter and we'll generate a little word cloud. Now, this is our current one? Okay, thanks. It looks a little bit, okay. Yeah, I think we're going from the last word cloud to this word cloud. Okay, excellent. So I'm seeing condescending, insulting, oppositional, patronizing. Yeah, you guys are doing great. Dismissive. Let's keep going. We want to try to get at least half of the audience to respond if we can. So we have about 742 people on, so we'll try to get to at least like 350, maybe a little bit over 350 if we can. You guys are doing great. Patronizing, confrontational. Yeah. Mean, rude, divisive, superior. Yeah, you're nailing it. This is great. Great work. Okay, I think we can stop there. I think you got the idea of that. Now, let's move on to the next slide. What we're going to do next is we're going to talk about kind of how to fix it. So just a word about what's going on in this moment. It's really tempting to hear people who might have supported Trump or refused to vote for Harris is not agreeing with you on key issues. And that may be true. I mean, that's what our democracy is all about. People disagree, and that's the definition of a democracy, right? But to preserve our democratic republic, we need everyone to work together to protect it. And we need to be inclusive. And inclusive here includes political diversity as well. So what that means is being respectful, all the things you put at the beginning, being respectful, being kind, being gracious is so important. So let's go on to the next slide. And that's what we're going to help you with tonight. So how we talk about issues is so important. How we frame them, the language we use. So for example, Republicans couldn't care less. They want our kids to starve. Well, you know, it might feel good, but if you're a Republican like Doug, you're going to look at that like, what? And why is that being said? And you can get your message across in a more diplomatic way, right? I like to think of it as when they go low, we go high, right? Everybody remembers that wonderful saying from Michelle Obama. So one way you could do it is you could take that and you could say, you know, one thing that's so special about our state is that we take care of each other. I bet you're one of those people. We all deserve to have enough to eat, not just folks who are rich. So regardless of your income level, regardless of your race, your ethnicity, you need to be, you know, we all need to be treated well and have the essentials. So you've kind of said the same thing, but you've said it in a more diplomatic way that might get listened to and acted upon. Let's go on to some other examples. So Republicans hate women. You might be on Twitter and you see that, or Facebook. And, you know, think about how you could reframe that. You might say, I worked hard all my life. I bet you did too. As a woman, I'm saying that. When you work hard, you know, you want to be paid fairly for your work. And that's why I think women should get equal pay. So you don't have to necessarily accuse anybody. You can explain like why you think it's important to get equal pay. Or you may be in a conversation with someone and they're like, I'm not going to vote for her. Democrats are freeloaders. Well, it's easy to come back and say, no, we're not, or, you know, Republicans are worse. But the other way to handle it is to say, the hardest working folks I know belong to both parties, you know, and really be more inclusive. And, you know, the second part, I'm not sure I 100% agree with, but I think it's getting at the fact that there is something out there called conflict entrepreneurs, which are people on social media or people who are really just trying to rile us up. And, you know, I think it's a very real thing. And you don't have to feed into that at all. You can go high. And then you might see a rally sign. Democrats want to take away our jobs, destroy our way of life in West Virginia. I mentioned West Virginia because of the coal mining. And you could flip it and say, well, you know, we see lots of opportunities for jobs in West Virginia in innovative technologies like renewables, solar and wind. So those are just some ways you can reframe. It's not easy, but it's something that can be extremely effective. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to practice. And if you're in a group, go back to the person you worked with on the first exercise. We're going to give you 5 minutes. And if you're by yourself, just reflect. It's okay. You can do this on your own. And you don't have to do all 3 of these. You could just do one. But the idea is to take a moment to write down how you might reframe these prompts. So you can see them up here. And, you know, let's say you're in a group and you're online or conversation or rally sign. How could you reframe it to get your point across, but do it in a more dignified, respectful, what we call higher order or higher rung thinking? Okay. And I'll tell you when we're almost done with the time so that you can rejoin the group. Also, if you can't hear me because of your audio off, just watch that countdown timer. Okay. So you have about 2 more minutes. If you're not muted, hopefully you're muted, then you're working with your partner, but just in case, you have about 2 more minutes. And we'll ask people to wrap it up. So if you're on your own, just be getting ready to put something in the chat in a moment. If you haven't already, if you're done, you can go ahead and put something in the chat right now. And those of you who are working in groups, hopefully you're seeing the countdown timer. And we'll wrap it up. Okay, I think we can stop the timer now. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead. We can go to the next slide. Just put your responses in the chat. I'm just going to read out a few of these that I thought were particularly insightful. There's so many and they're so good. Here's a rephrase. The people I respect most are those that show kindness and generosity, even when it's difficult. I know people from all walks that are able to do that. That's amazing. How do you think we should value grace and security with our treatment of immigrants? Well, I think modeling what you're trying to do is a great one. And then I think there's another one here. Most Americans love their country and want a good life for themselves and their families. And there's a lot about Jesus, which I think is great. A lot about Jesus welcoming the stranger, regardless of whether you're Christian or not. I think that's great to see. I really appreciate all of these responses. No one responds well to gloating. Everybody has different opinions. Excellent job. Okay, let's move on in the interest of time. So we are going to do a little bit of a break. So we're going to give you a chance. You've been working really hard. Let's start the timer. So keep an eye on it. Get up, stretch, move around, and we'll see you back when the timer ends. thanks for coming back. I just have to say, I'm so touched by the chat. There's something in there about you have been taught to be mean, and then the world is mean back, and it only makes it worse. It's so hard talking with people you don't understand or who don't understand you. But I do understand this. You and I deserve a world that isn't lonely. You and I deserve a world that is understanding. Oh my gosh, that just touches my heart. Thank you, guys. There's also something saying that history shows the world shifts toward kindness. Love it. I just want to keep going so we can get you out. Just to remind you, if you're interested in hearing these themes more, our Substack is very simple to remember. It's togethernow.substack.com. And hopefully one of the organizers can put that in the chat again, togethernow.substack.com. Okay, so you may be feeling in not so great of a place. Hopefully the break helped, but you may be feeling upset and frustrated, and that's okay. We've all been there. And if so, just watch. You don't have to do the one-on-one practice. We don't want to force you. We want you to focus on your health. If you're in a tough conversation or you feel like one's coming, you might want to meditate before you do it, take some deep breaths, take a walk around the block, or maybe even say to your conversation partner, hey, let's go hiking, and have that difficult conversation while you're out in nature hiking. So lots of things to think about. I just thought it would be very important to acknowledge that. Next slide. This is hard work. Okay, so we are going to do one more exercise before we complete our training. And this is how you can talk to someone in a way that promotes conversation and is non-judgmental. And the things that we like to teach are, first of all, connect on a common interest. So for example, even if you can't agree with someone, think about something that you value. It might be health, it might be kids, it might be your community. So try to start there and then listen actively. Don't be thinking about what you need to say. Think about what the person is saying and show them that you've heard them. Show them that they're heard. Acknowledge what they said, even if you don't agree with it. Ask follow-up questions to go deeper. And remember your tone. Remember your body language. That's very important too. And then when it is your time to speak, I always like to ask permission to speak first. Like, I'll acknowledge what somebody said. I hear that you're worried about crime or whatever. And then I'll say, hey, I have a slightly different perspective. Can I share it? And I always try to use I statements so that it's not a fact, it's just what I think, right? People can't really criticize you if it's what you think. And if it's your own personal experience, if you can tell a story, that's even better. And then remember those stereotypes, remember those labels that we worked so hard on before the break. You want to try to avoid those. Okay, so next slide. What we're going to do is we are going to practice this with our person again. And again, if you're not in a group, you can just be doing this on your own too. It'll work. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you 6 minutes for each person. So you'll have 12 minutes each if you're working with someone. If you're on your own, you'll have a little bit extra time. And one of you will be person 1, one of you will be person 2. So you can just decide who's going to be 1 and who's going to be 2. If you're person 1, think about somebody you struggle to talk with. It may be a friend, it may be a relative, it may be a neighbor, and describe to person 2 in just like 30 seconds who that person is. And then person 2 is going to role play that person you have trouble with, that individual you have trouble with. And you, as person 1, are going to practice listening and speaking and kind of bringing the temperature down and being respectful. I put some of those things here to remind you: the connecting, the listening actively, acknowledging, clarifying questions, and then sharing your statement and story without labeling. And remember to breathe, remember to stay calm. And then it says after 10 minutes. That's wrong. It's after 6 minutes. We shortened it. So after 6 minutes, you'll switch and person one will become person two. And then the last thing we're going to have you do is make a commitment with your group, your other person, for how you'll practice these skills and when you'll practice these skills. Okay, so to give you an idea of how this works, Doug and I are going to role play, and I'm going to be person one. So basically, person one is my Uncle Fred. Actually, my Uncle Doug. And Uncle Doug is a Republican who believes that police are the answer to everything. Our entire community's crime problem is going to be solved by having more police. So Doug is actually going to start. I'm skipping the part about connecting because let's just say we're together at a Thanksgiving dinner. We know each other for years. So Uncle Doug is going to start, and I am going to try to calm down Uncle Doug. Go for it, Doug.
Hey, yeah, Beth, now listen, I like you and all that, but you and your liberal friends, you're ignoring the problem of rising crime in this community. It's scary to live out here. I hear too much defund the police and other anti-police rhetoric. It's demoralizing. You and your people need to support them. I want our city to do the right thing by expanding our police force. I know officers can't solve every problem, but they're our first line of defense and deserve our full respect and support.
Uncle Doug, oh my goodness. I appreciate where you're coming from. Let me just catch my breath. Okay, listen, I'm scared. I'm scared too by the increased crime. I agree with you that we need to make our city safer. I've been giving this issue a lot of thought. Can I share with you what I've been reading about?
Well, okay, what do you got?
Well, this is hard for me. Let me thank you for giving me some space. I believe that a big part of crime is related to poverty and discrimination and mental health issues. And it has to be solved by addressing these problems. For example, my African American friend Althea was telling me how her relatives don't trust the police, especially when they come to their homes and they're armed. I think we have to also fund social workers who can respond to mental health 911 calls and community agencies that address poverty. I just feel like that's a really important part of the solution.
Well, yeah, I guess you have a point about that.
Okay, thank you. You know, you saw in the beginning, I deliberately was shaking my head because even though I knew I wasn't supposed to, sometimes that's how we feel. We get angry, we feel frustrated, and it's okay. And the key is like to just, by the end of the conversation, take some breaths, do what you need to do. And with my language, what I tried to do is find something to agree with Doug. We need to make our city safer. I also used a lot of I statements. I asked permission before sharing my view, and I kept trying to breathe. And I tried to not respond to the "you Democrats" and ignoring and all of those trigger words as best as I could. Okay, so now we're going to let you guys practice. All right, let's go back to the last slide for just a minute, just to make sure everybody's got it in their heads. If we can. Okay, great. So we are going to set the timer on the next slide, but just remember, one of you is person one of you is person two. Set up the scenario, and person two will role play, and then just do your best. We're not asking you to be perfect. We just want you to get the experience of listening and responding. Okay. No, I think those who are working together are muted. I'm just gonna, Kaney put something very good in the chat, which is if you are alone, just write out each side of the conversation and just try to play out the conversation, putting yourself in each person's role. So I just wanted to make sure you saw that. Thanks, Akani. Okay, we have a little over a minute left, so wrap it up if you're working in a pair or if you're working on your own. We'll get ready to have you flip to person two in just a minute. There are no questions to answer. It's more just practicing this idea of listening and sharing your perspective. Okay, and let's stop the clock so that we don't get that loud buzzer sound. Great. Excellent. Okay, we're going to restart it now. So if you're in a group, remember, you're now person two if you were person one and vice versa. If you're not in a group, just think about how the person you were thinking about might respond to you. Okay, let's go. London Public Citizen put something very nice in the chat. If you scroll up, he or she summarized everything we need to do. Person one and person two. Thank you, London, for that. Okay, guys, we're really down to the wire, and this is the last exercise we're going to do. We just have one quick aha moment after this. So thank you guys for sticking with us through this.
Beth,
I think
I
we could
just-
stop the timer.
Can I just add a couple comments and how
Please, Doug, yes.
impressed I am with this group? And, you know, Beth and I have done a lot of Zoom calls, but I have to say I've never been on with 700 people and just trying to keep up with the chat. And it's challenging, but also inspiring. And, you know, way back at the beginning, someone put down a comment, what if we can't find commonality? And you know, later, more recently, somebody talked about shared humanity. And this does come down to that shared humanity. We know we've done many Brave Arrangement workshops where people can do, if in the right kind of structure, people can find common ground and recognize shared humanity. And someone mentioned sacred listening and the listening I mean, this is so important. And there are so many people in our country. Democracy is about having differences of opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is for us it's become so personalized. We demonize people who don't agree with us, and that just pushes them away farther. And these conflict entrepreneurs and other people that are pushing division in our country just accelerate that. So, when you show you can connect with people, and somebody, there were a lot of interesting comments early on about those negative ones, about how elitist and arrogant they were. And somebody wrote, "This kind of statements are why we lost the election." And I do think we push people apart when we can't find ways to talk in a respectful way. So I'll wrap it up there and let Beth finish up the workshop.
Doug, thank you so much for those insightful comments. They were great. Let's go on to the last slide, which is basically just, we'd love to hear from you in the chat. And I'm not going to put the 2-minute timer on. I'm just going to, in the interest of time, I just want people to write something in the chat. One aha moment from today that you want to remember, something you got out of the training that maybe was unexpected, that you want to just share with others, would be great. And then we'll wrap it up. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to say, I am so grateful to the organizers and to all of you. I can't remember when I was on a Zoom with this many people. I've spoken in person, but not on Zoom. And you all have just been incredible in your engagement and your responses. I loved reading the chat. Okay, so here's a couple, and then we'll go. Aha moment: quiet strategizing, organizing across the pillars of support, asking for permission to speak in a discussion. Yes. How I need to be soft when talking to people who don't agree with me. I know there were several comments in the chat about particularly women being careful not to say I think or I believe. I've actually found that when it's a very tense discussion, it can go a long way to show that vulnerability. I know it's not perfect and it's not for every moment. Just think about, sometimes it might be appropriate. And I like the way to try to find ways to talk to people we disagree with. And if we can talk with people and hear one another, the closer we can come to learning something new. And isn't that what our democracy and inclusion is all about, is getting people with different ideas to talk with each other and to share. All right. So I am going to thank you guys for sticking it out and hand things back over to our organizers so that they can get you to bed soon. Thank you.
Okay, we will be sharing a recording after the call and links that were shared in the chat with you all, and the songs, as well as these slides in a PDF form. So thank you all so much. Next slide. Just want to thank you. The next training, I'm sorry, I actually put something wrong in the chat. The next training is next week, Thursday, April 24th. It is on harnessing our power to end political violence. Hope folks turn out this weekend on Saturday with your love-driven, joyful signs to support a democracy that includes everyone. And I'll turn it over to Kaden to close us out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Again, thank you all so much for joining tonight's Rise for Freedom training on talking across differences. Please, again, as Akinde said, join on Saturday for the national mobilization with 5051, and next week on April 24th, we will have a recording, the slides, resources in an email tomorrow, so look forward to that. But we will close ourselves out as usual with Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come," and it's a father-son cover that we have queued up for you tonight. So take it away, Sophie.